The day you choose to do the right thing might be the day everything falls apart, or the day your life begins to change forever. At 5:30 on a cold Tuesday morning, Emily Carter was already awake, staring at the glowing screen of her phone in the darkness of her small apartment. Her checking account balance showed just $23.14. Rent was due in 4 days. The electric bill sat unopened on the kitchen counter. And in the next room, her 8-year-old son Noah was sleeping with a damp washcloth on his forehead after spending most of the night fighting a fever. Emily rubbed her tired eyes and let out a slow breath. She had slept less than 3 hours, but missing work wasn't an option. Not anymore. She quietly stepped into Noah's room and gently touched his forehead. He felt a little cooler than before. That was something. "Mom," Noah mumbled without opening his eyes. "I'm here, sweetheart," she whispered. "You going to work?" "Yeah. But Mrs. Jenkins from downstairs is going to check on you after school." Noah nodded weakly and drifted back to sleep. Emily forced a smile, but the knot in her stomach tightened. For the past 3 years, she had done everything alone. Since Noah's father left, every bill, every doctor appointment, every school meeting, every late-night worry had landed on her shoulders. She worked hard, never complained, and rarely asked anyone for help. Yet somehow life kept getting harder. By 6:45, she was rushing through the rain toward her aging sedan in the apartment parking lot. The windshield was fogged. The gas tank sat just above empty. Her phone buzzed with a notification from work. She didn't even need to open it to know what it said. Be on time. Again. Her manager had already warned her twice this month. One more late arrival, and she could lose the only steady income standing between her and disaster. Emily started the car and pulled onto the road. Traffic was heavier than usual because of the weather. Every red light felt longer. Every minute felt expensive. She glanced at the dashboard clock and calculated the odds. If everything went perfectly, she might make it. Barely. But life rarely gave Emily perfect mornings. As rain tapped against the windshield, she tightened her grip on the steering wheel and whispered a silent prayer. She didn't ask for wealth. She didn't ask for luck. She only asked for enough time to keep her job and enough strength to keep going. A few miles ahead, beyond a curve in the road, something unexpected was about to appear and force her to make a choice that would change everything. And within the next hour, Emily Carter would face the most difficult decision of her life. Emily rounded the curve in the road and immediately noticed a dark luxury sedan pulled onto the shoulder with its hazard lights blinking through the rain. At first, she thought someone was waiting for roadside assistance, and she kept driving. Her eyes dropped to the dashboard clock. 7:23. If she did not hit another delay, she still had a chance to make it to work before her shift started. Then she saw movement. A man stood beside the vehicle, leaning heavily against the driver's door. Even from a distance, something looked wrong. Emily instinctively eased her foot off the gas. The voice of responsibility immediately pushed back. "Keep driving. You cannot be late. No one needs you to keep this job." But another voice spoke just as loudly. "What if he needs help?" The rain continued falling as she passed the sedan by nearly 50 yards. Her hands tightened around the steering wheel. For 3 long seconds, she argued with herself. Then she sighed, checked her mirror, and pulled over. The moment her tires stopped, she knew she was risking everything. Grabbing her umbrella, she hurried toward the stranded driver. The man appeared to be in his late 30s, dressed in an expensive coat now soaked by the weather. His face looked pale, and he seemed unsteady. "Sir, are you okay?" Emily called out. The man looked up, surprised to see someone stop. "I think so," he said, though his voice suggested otherwise. "My car stalled. I got dizzy when I stepped out." Emily glanced around. The road was busy, yet dozens of vehicles continued passing without slowing down. "Have you called anyone?" she asked. "My phone battery died." Emily immediately reached into her pocket and handed him her phone. "Use mine." The stranger hesitated. "Thank you." As he made a call, Emily stood beside him in the rain, silently watching traffic. Every passing minute felt heavier. She checked the time again. 7:28. Then 7:32. The stranger finished his call and thanked her again, but his assistance had not arrived. Emily could have left then. Most people probably would have. Instead, she stayed. Something about the situation bothered her. Maybe it was the exhaustion in his eyes. Maybe it was the memory of difficult days when she wished someone had shown her a little kindness. Minutes continued slipping away. 7:38. 7:41. Her stomach twisted with anxiety. Finally, another vehicle pulled onto the shoulder. A professional driver stepped out and rushed over. Relief washed across the stranger's face. "Looks like your ride is here," Emily said. "You should get somewhere warm." The man nodded gratefully. "I never even got your name." "Emily," she replied. "Emily Carter." He seemed about to say something else, but she was already backing away toward her car. Time had run out. As she climbed behind the wheel, her phone buzzed with a new message from work. Her heart sank before she even opened it. And when she finally looked at the screen, the words waiting for her made her realize this morning was about to become far worse than she had imagined. The message from work was short, cold, and impossible to misunderstand. "Emily, report directly to my office when you arrive. Linda Harper." Emily felt her stomach drop. Linda was not the type of manager who sent friendly messages. During the 15-minute drive to the restaurant, Emily rehearsed her explanation over and over. She would tell the truth. She had stopped to help someone stranded on the side of the road. Any reasonable person would understand. At least that was what she hoped. By the time she pulled into the employee parking lot, it was 7:52. Her shift had started 22 minutes earlier. Rain continued falling as she hurried toward the entrance. The moment she stepped inside, several co-workers looked up from their stations. Some offered sympathetic smiles. Others quickly looked away. The atmosphere felt wrong. Emily barely had time to set down her purse before a sharp voice cut through the room. "My office." Now. Linda Harper stood near the hallway with her arms crossed. Emily followed her inside and closed the door behind her. Linda did not offer a seat. "Do you know why you are here?" she asked. "I know I am late, but there was an emergency. A man needed help on the side of the road, and save it." Linda held up a hand. "I have heard every excuse imaginable." Emily blinked. "This is not an excuse. I stayed because someone needed assistance. And I need employees who show up on time." Emily felt her face warm. "I understand, but I thought helping someone was the right thing to do." Linda stared at her for several seconds. "The right thing to do would have been showing up for the job you were hired to perform." The words hit harder than Emily expected. She thought of Noah lying sick at home. She thought of the rent due in 4 days. "Please," she said quietly. "I cannot lose this job." Linda slid a folder across the desk. "Your attendance record has already been discussed. We gave you warnings. We gave you opportunities. Today was your final violation." Emily looked down at the termination form. For a moment, everything around her seemed to go silent. "You are firing me?" she whispered. "Effective immediately." Emily struggled to process the words. "After everything I have done here? This conversation is over." Linda stood and opened the office door. The message was clear. Emily was no longer welcome. A few minutes later, she walked through the dining area carrying a small box containing her belongings. Several co-workers watched with uncomfortable expressions. Nobody said much. Nobody stepped forward. The humiliation hurt almost as much as the loss itself. Outside, she sat in her car while rain streaked across the windshield. Her hands trembled as she stared at the termination papers. She wanted to cry, but she could not afford to fall apart. Noah was counting on her. Somehow she needed to find another job. Somehow she needed to keep their lives from collapsing. As she started the engine, her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Emily almost ignored it. Then she answered. What she heard next made her grip the steering wheel tighter than ever. "Hello," Emily said cautiously as rain continued tapping against her windshield. "Ms. Carter," a woman asked. "This is Riverside Pediatrics. We are calling about Noah." Emily's heart immediately raced. "Is everything okay?" "Everything is fine," the receptionist replied. "We simply wanted to let you know that an anonymous payment was made on your account this morning." Emily frowned. "Anonymous payment?" "Yes, ma'am. The outstanding balance has been paid in full." For several seconds, Emily could not speak. She knew exactly how much she owed. Nearly $600 from Noah's recent visits. Money she had no idea how she was going to find. "There must be some mistake," she finally said. "There is no mistake. The account balance is now 0. After ending the call, Emily sat motionless in the parking lot. She did not know anyone with enough money or reason to do such a thing. Her family lived across the country. Most of her friends were struggling themselves. The timing felt impossible. Just hours after losing her job, one of her biggest financial burdens had suddenly disappeared. Yet the mystery only deepened. Who would do that? And why? By the time she returned home, Noah was sitting on the couch under a blanket watching cartoons. Mrs. Jenkins smiled as Emily walked through the door. "He is feeling much better," the older woman said. Emily thanked her and waited until they were alone before sitting beside her son. Noah noticed her expression immediately. "What happened?" he asked. Emily forced a smile. "I lost my job today." Noah looked down. "Because you were helping somebody?" Emily nodded. The boy was quiet for a moment. "Then you did the right thing." Emily felt tears threatening to form. Out of everything that had happened that day, those 6 words were the first thing that made her feel stronger instead of weaker. Later that evening, after Noah had gone to bed, Emily began updating her resume. She submitted applications to restaurants, stores, offices, and anywhere else she could think of. Hours passed. Rejection emails started arriving almost immediately. Some positions had already been filled. Others required experience she did not have. By midnight, exhaustion settled over her like a heavy blanket. Then she heard a soft knock at her apartment door. Confused, Emily checked the peephole. Nobody was there. She slowly opened the door and looked down. A plain white envelope rested on the welcome mat. There was no name, no address, no indication of who had delivered it. Emily picked it up and stepped back inside. Her pulse quickened as she carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten card and a cashier's check. The amount made her eyes widen. It was enough to cover several months of rent. Her hands trembled as she read the short message written on the card. "Thank you for choosing kindness when it would have been easier to walk away. More details will come soon. Until then, please take care of your son." There was no signature, no explanation, nothing else. Emily stared at the mysterious note for a long time. Then she turned the card over, hoping to find some clue. What she discovered on the back made her breath catch in her throat. On the back of the card was a small, embossed symbol. Emily did not recognize it, but it looked expensive, the kind of logo that belonged to a major corporation. Beneath it were only 3 words. "More details soon." That was all. She spent the next hour searching online, trying to identify the symbol, but every result led nowhere. Eventually, exhaustion won, and she fell asleep with more questions than answers. The next morning, reality returned quickly. Mysterious gifts did not solve everything. She still needed a job. After getting Noah ready for school, Emily spent the day attending interviews across town. Some employers seemed interested until they learned she was a single parent with limited schedule flexibility. Others simply never called back. By the end of the week, discouragement had started creeping in again. Then something unexpected happened. A local family-owned grocery chain invited her for an interview. The store manager, Robert Miller, greeted her warmly and spent nearly an hour discussing customer service experience and work ethic. Unlike others, he seemed interested in who she was as a person. 2 days later, Emily received a call offering her a position. The pay was slightly better than her previous job, and the schedule would allow her to be home with Noah in the evenings. For the first time since losing her job, she felt genuine relief. That night, she celebrated with Noah by ordering a small pizza. Nothing fancy, just enough to make the evening feel special. Noah grinned as they sat at the kitchen table. "See, Mom? I told you everything would work out." Emily laughed softly. "I wish I had your confidence. Maybe good things happen when people help other people." His words reminded her of the mysterious stranger and the unsigned note. Whoever had helped her remained unknown, but their kindness had arrived exactly when she needed it most. Over the next several days, Emily completed paperwork and prepared to start her new position. The future no longer felt hopeless. Bills could be paid. Rent would be covered. Noah seemed healthier and happier. Even the apartment felt brighter. Then, on the afternoon before her first day at the new job, her phone rang. The caller identification showed the grocery store. Smiling, Emily answered immediately. But as soon as she heard Robert Miller's voice, her smile disappeared. He sounded uncomfortable, almost apologetic. "Emily," he said slowly, "I am very sorry, but we need to discuss your employment offer." A cold feeling settled in her chest. "What happened?" There was a long pause. "Someone contacted us regarding your previous workplace. They shared information that raises concerns." Emily sat upright. "What kind of information?" Another silence followed. Then Robert spoke words she never expected to hear. "They told us you were terminated for serious misconduct." Emily felt the room spin. She knew exactly who would benefit from that lie. And as Robert continued explaining, she realized the nightmare she thought was over had only just begun. Emily spent nearly 20 minutes explaining what had really happened. She told Robert Miller about the rainy morning, the stranded stranger, the delayed arrival, and the termination that followed. Robert listened carefully, and when she finished, he sounded genuinely sympathetic. "I believe you," he said. "The problem is that the person who contacted us was very convincing. They claimed there were multiple issues beyond attendance." Emily closed her eyes. She did not need proof to know who was behind it. Linda Harper had already taken her job. Apparently, that was not enough. "So what happens now?" Emily asked quietly. Another painful pause followed. The owners decided to withdraw the offer. The call ended a few minutes later, leaving Emily staring at the wall of her apartment. Just days earlier, she had felt hope returning. Now it was gone again. Worse than before. She had lost not one opportunity, but two. That evening, Noah noticed the difference immediately. "Did something bad happen?" he asked. Emily forced a smile she did not feel. "Just a small setback." Noah looked unconvinced. "You always say that when it is a big setback." Despite everything, Emily laughed softly. Her son knew her too well. Over the next week, she continued applying for jobs, but confidence became harder to maintain. Savings were disappearing. The mysterious check had bought time, not security. Each morning she woke up determined to keep going. Each evening she wondered how much longer she could. Then another surprise arrived. On Friday afternoon, a professionally dressed courier appeared at her apartment door, carrying a sealed envelope. "Emily Carter?" he asked. "Yes. This is for you." Before she could ask questions, he handed over the envelope and left. Emily examined it carefully. The paper was thick and expensive. The same embossed symbol from the anonymous card appeared in the corner. Her pulse quickened. She opened it immediately. Inside was a formal invitation printed on elegant stationery. She read it once, then twice, then a third time. The invitation requested her presence at a charity gala being held the following Saturday evening at the Grand Regency Hotel downtown. Hundreds of community leaders, business executives, and donors would attend. Emily stared at the page in disbelief. There had to be some mistake. People like her did not attend events like this. At the bottom was a handwritten note. "Your presence is important. Transportation will be provided." Emily turned the page over, hoping for an explanation. There was none. Noah looked up from the couch. "What is it?" Emily handed him the invitation. His eyes widened. "Wow. Are you going?" "I do not even know why I was invited. Maybe it has something to do with the person you helped." The possibility immediately crossed her mind. For the first time, the mysterious gifts, the paid medical bills, and the unsigned messages seemed connected. Someone had been watching. Someone knew exactly what had happened that morning. And whoever that person was now wanted her at a room filled with some of the most powerful people in the city. What Emily did not know was that the answer she had been searching for was finally waiting for her there. Saturday arrived faster than Emily expected. For most of the week, she had debated whether to attend the gala at all. The invitation still felt unreal. She had no connections to wealthy donors, corporate executives, or charity boards. Yet every time she considered staying home, she remembered the anonymous note. Someone wanted her there for a reason. Shortly before 6 o'clock, a Blacktown car arrived outside her apartment exactly as promised. Noah stood by the window watching. "You have to go," he said. "What if this is the answer to everything?" Emily smiled and adjusted the simple navy blue dress she had borrowed from a neighbor. "I think you have watched too many movies." "Maybe," Noah replied with a grin. "But I still think something important is about to happen." 40 minutes later, the car pulled up to the Grand Regency Hotel. The building glowed with elegant lights, and guests in formal attire moved through the entrance. Emily suddenly felt out of place. For a moment, she considered turning around. Then she remembered all the doors that had closed in recent weeks. Walking through one that had opened seemed worth the risk. Inside, the ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead. Round tables filled the enormous room. Servers moved quietly between guests. Emily recognized several faces from local news broadcasts and business magazines. She could not understand why she belonged there. A hostess greeted her warmly and escorted her to a reserved seat near the front of the room. That surprised her even more. Important guests sat near the front, not unemployed single mothers. Throughout the evening, speakers discussed charitable projects and community programs. Emily listened politely, but remained distracted. She kept looking around, wondering if she would recognize someone connected to the mysterious gifts. As the final presentation approached, The atmosphere shifted. Conversations quieted. Anticipation spread through the room. The master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage and smiled. Ladies and gentlemen, our final speaker needs no introduction. Please welcome philanthropist, entrepreneur, and Brooks Holdings Chief Executive Officer, Ethan Brooks. The audience immediately erupted into applause. Emily froze. The name sounded familiar. Then she saw him walk onto the stage. Her breath caught. It was the man from the roadside. The stranger she had helped in the rain. The same man whose phone had died. The same man she had stayed behind to assist, even though she knew she would be late. Ethan Brooks stood confidently before the crowd and waited for the applause to fade. Tonight, he began, I would like to share a story about character. Emily felt her pulse accelerating. Ethan continued, a few weeks ago, I experienced an unexpected situation on a rainy morning. During that moment, dozens of people passed by without stopping. They were busy. They had places to be. I understand that. But one person chose differently. The room grew silent. Ethan's eyes moved across the audience. That individual had every reason to keep driving. Yet she stopped anyway. Emily could barely breathe. Then Ethan looked directly toward her table. And when he spoke his next words, every head in the ballroom turned in her direction. Emily Carter, Ethan Brooks said clearly, his voice carrying across the ballroom. Would you please join me on stage? For a moment, Emily thought she might have misunderstood. Hundreds of eyes were suddenly focused on her. The room was silent, except for a few whispers moving through the crowd. Her heart pounded as she slowly stood from her chair. A hostess smiled encouragingly and guided her toward the stage. Every step felt unreal. When she finally reached Ethan, he extended his hand and helped her onto the platform. The audience responded with polite applause, though many looked confused. Ethan turned toward the crowd. This is the woman I was talking about. The applause grew louder. Emily stood frozen, unsure what to say. Ethan smiled. A few weeks ago, I found myself stranded during a difficult morning. I was not looking for recognition. I was not testing anyone. In fact, most people in this room never knew it happened. But what I learned that day reminded me of something important. Character reveals itself when nobody is watching. The ballroom remained completely silent. Emily had every reason to keep driving. She was already late for work. She was raising a child on her own. She had responsibilities waiting for her. Yet she stopped. She gave her time to help a stranger who could offer her nothing in return. Ethan paused and looked toward Emily. At least that is what she thought. A soft ripple of laughter moved through the audience. Then Ethan's expression became more serious. Afterward, I asked my team to find her. What we discovered disturbed me deeply. Several large screens behind the stage illuminated. Images appeared showing timelines, employment records, and documented communications. Ethan continued speaking. We learned that shortly after helping me, Emily lost her job. We also learned that she later secured another position, only to have false claims interfere with that opportunity. Emily's eyes widened. She had never told him those details. Ethan's team had investigated everything. When good people are punished for doing the right thing, Ethan said, something is wrong. The audience nodded. Some looked visibly uncomfortable. Ethan then revealed that he had paid Noah's medical balance, arranged the anonymous assistance, and organized the invitation. Gasps spread across the room. Emily felt tears forming. For weeks, she had wondered who had helped her. Now the answer stood beside her. I wanted to understand who she really was, Ethan continued. What I found was a mother who consistently put others before herself despite facing enormous challenges. Applause erupted throughout the ballroom. Emily lowered her head, overwhelmed by emotion. Then Ethan reached into his jacket and removed another envelope. But tonight is not simply about gratitude. The room quieted once again. It is about opportunity. He handed the envelope to Emily. Confused, she opened it and stared at the document inside. Her eyes widened as she read the first line. The audience watched in anticipation while Ethan smiled. Go ahead, he said gently. Tell them what it says. Emily looked down at the document again, convinced she had read it incorrectly. The offer letter carried the official Brooks Holdings letterhead. Beneath it was a position title she had never imagined seeing next to her own name. Community Outreach Director. The salary alone was more than she had earned in several years combined. Included were health benefits, educational opportunities, flexible scheduling, and support resources for working parents. For several seconds, she could not speak. The audience waited patiently. Ethan smiled. Well, Emily finally looked up, her voice trembling. It says you are offering me a job. Laughter and applause immediately filled the ballroom. Ethan nodded. That is correct. The applause grew even louder. But not because you helped me, Ethan continued. You earned this because of who you are. My team spent weeks learning about your character, your work ethic, and the way you treat people. We are not rewarding a single act. We are recognizing a pattern of integrity. Emily felt tears rolling down her cheeks. For the first time in months, they were not tears of fear or frustration. They were tears of relief. Ethan then addressed the audience once more. There is one more thing I believe everyone should know. The screens behind them changed again. This time they displayed documented records from the investigation. Ethan calmly explained that false statements had been made about Emily after she secured new employment. He never spoke with anger. He simply presented verified facts. The audience listened closely. By the time he finished, the truth was impossible to ignore. Emily had not lost opportunities because of misconduct. She had lost them because someone chose to misrepresent her actions. The room responded with sympathetic applause. Ethan then returned his attention to Emily. People often assume kindness is weakness, he said. I disagree. Kindness requires courage, especially when there is a personal cost. The audience stood and applauded. Many remained standing long after the speech ended. Later that evening, as guests approached to congratulate her, Emily felt as though she had stepped into someone else's life. Yet it was real. The fear that had followed her for weeks was finally beginning to fade. When she arrived home that night, Noah was waiting awake despite being past his bedtime. The moment she walked through the door, he ran toward her. What happened? He asked excitedly. Emily knelt beside him and handed over the offer letter. Noah carefully read the first few lines before his eyes widened. You got the job? I got the job. He wrapped his arms around her immediately. I knew it, he said. I told you something important was going to happen. Emily laughed through her tears and hugged him tightly. Outside, the city lights shimmered through the apartment window. The bills had not magically disappeared. Life would still bring challenges. But for the first time in a very long time, she felt something stronger than worry. She felt hope. All because on a difficult morning, when she had every reason to keep driving, she chose compassion instead. And in the end, the choice that seemed to cost her everything became the very thing that changed her life forever.